We are about to be live on the radio. Hello, hello. Hey, Bloomington Normal. Welcome back to Speechless on Cities 92.9, the news and talk of Bloomington Normal and beyond. I am your host, Kev Phares, and wow, what a week it has been, everybody. We have former teammate of Lia Thomas testified in Congress about abuse while she was on the team. 13 GOP presidential candidates squared off in Iowa at an Iowa Lincoln Day dinner, and so much more. All of that today and more on Speechless. I'm your host, Kev Phares. Hey, everybody, welcome back to Speechless. I'm your host, Kev Phares, on Cities 92.9, live on Sundays from 3 to 5 p.m. I'm your host, like I said, and feel free to text or call into the show at 309-451-9299 if you'd like to join the conversation. 309-451-9299 is that number. Also, as always, if you are not in your car, you're not driving, and you want to tune into the show, you can go onto Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, Twitter, or Rumble and find me. Look up Cities 92.9 or Speechless with Kev Phares, last name Phares. Again, that's Phares. Sounds like Ferris Bueller, spelled a lot differently. Speechless with Kev Phares on any of those, and you can interact with me right there. Like I said, I got a lot to talk about today. We're going to start off with this story out of Congress. This last Friday, Paula Scanlan, who is the former teammate of Lia Thomas, testified and opens up about a 2016 sexual assault. Scanlan competed alongside Lia Thomas from 2021 to 2022. Former NCAA Division I swimmer Paula Scanlan, who was a member of the University of Pennsylvania's women's team, along with trans swimmer Lia Thomas, testified before a House Judiciary Committee on Thursday morning, where she spoke about her experience and revealed the impact Thomas's presence in the locker room on her had on her as a survivor of sexual assault. I think it's very important to listen to Paula's entire story that she shared. It is about a 5-minute video. I will pause it in between different parts of it so that we can kind of react a little bit to it together. If you are listening on the radio, you will be able to obviously hear her exact testimony on Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, Twitter, Rumble. I'm going to be bringing the video up onto the screen so you can view it as well. So let's get into this. This is Paula Scanlan, former teammate of Lia Thomas, outlining to a committee. Let me actually make sure I have this committee correct here. The committee on, I will get it for us later because I want to make sure I bring us all the facts here. But Paula Scanlan opening up about how her abuse related to Lia Thomas exposing himself to women in their locker room. Let's take a look and a listen.
Good morning, Chairman Johnson and Ranking Member Scanlan and members of the subcommittee. I'm Paula Scanlan, a spokeswoman and advisor for the Independent Women's Forum and a former NCAA athlete. I am here today to share my personal story. I started swimming at a very young age, and by age 8, I was swimming competitively, and by late middle school, I was devoting at least 20 hours per week to swimming. I gave up countless Christmas holidays, weekends, and social events to work towards my goal of swimming Division I. A dream that came true when I began swimming for the University of Pennsylvania. While I am not an NCAA champion, I hold the New England Independent School League record in the 400-yard freestyle relay, a record that has stood since March of 2017. In September of 2021, Lia Thomas began participating as a member of the Penn women's team. Lia, formerly Will, had personal best times in every freestyle event that were faster than the women's world records. Once the season began, Thomas was leading the country in multiple events, while only placing in the top 500 in those events on the men's team. Thomas later became an NCAA champion in the 500-yard freestyle, the first NCAA champion in our women's team history program.
And as you guys may know, obviously, if you're just tuning in, I'm your host, Kev Phares, and this is Speechless on Cities 92.9. This is the congressional testimony. I made sure I pulled it up while she was speaking. We're going to cover the rest of it as well. But this is Paula Scanlan, a former UPenn swimmer that used to swim with Lia Thomas, the biological male who pretends to be a female. And this is her testimony before the House Judiciary Subcommittee on the Constitution and Limited Government in the quote, the dangers and due process violations of gender affirming care for children. Paula Scanlan is also currently a spokeswoman and advisor for the Independent Women's Forum. If you've ever tuned into this show before, you would know a little over almost 2 months ago now, I had Riley Gaines, the swimmer that tied with Lia Thomas at the NCAA championships back in 2022. I had her on this show, and it was right around the time that Paula Scanlan had actually revealed herself. Paula Scanlan, for anybody who does not know, got her first steps in the idea of advocating for women's sports when she appeared anonymously in Matt Walsh's hit documentary, What is a Woman? And now she has obviously come out publicly, shared who she is, what her role has been since then has been to advocate significantly for women's sports. And she just opened up giving a really good point. Well, starting off with her own personal history. And I think this is really important when we discuss the idea of men and women's sports, is the fact that for so many athletes, not just women, but athletes, period, when they get to that college level, when they get to that level that they are competing in the NCAA championships, they have worked their entire lives for this. Paula Scanlan, as we mentioned, at a very young age, by age 8, she was swimming competitively by age 8. And then up until she's 22. So it's 14 plus years. There's some people I know that swam in college that started swimming even younger than that. And then you have a biological man who probably also started swimming from a young age and was relatively good in their public pool programs and everything, but then comes in, is underperforming in the men's groups in colleges, and then decides, hey, I can be a woman and I can win. As Paula mentioned at the beginning of that testimony, was breaking women's world records when he started identifying as woman. How insane is that? Let's keep going with more of Paula's testimony. It gets incredibly emotional, and I think is absolutely worth watching every minute of it. So let's keep going with Paula Scanlan, former UPenn swimmer, and her testimony to Congress from last Friday.
While many of you already know this, what you do not know is the experiences of the women on the University of Pennsylvania swim team. My teammates and I were forced to undress in the presence of Lia, a 6'4" tall biological male, fully intact with male genitalia, 18 times per week. Some girls opted to change in bathroom stalls, and others used the family bathroom to avoid this. When we tried to voice our concerns to the athletic department, we were told that Lia's swimming and being in our locker room was a non-negotiable, and we were offered psychological services to attempt to re-educate us to become comfortable with the idea of undressing in front of a male.
So I have to pause it there. I have to, because I want to reiterate. I have the transcript of exactly what she's saying right in front of me as well, so I can make sure that we all hear exactly what she's saying, because this speech is so consequential on the future of women's spaces, not just women's sports, but women's spaces. Because here's one thing. So in that last kind of stanza that she spoke, she said her teammates and her were forced to undress in the presence of Lia, a 6'4" tall biological male, fully intact with male genitalia. And then at the end of that stanza, she states that the athletic department responded with psychological services that were an attempt to, quote, re-educate them to become comfortable with the idea of undressing in front of a male. How insane is that? How insane is that? This is honestly, this is a violation of their human rights, of their right to of any kind of comfort in private spaces. They were being forced to change in stalls because Lia Thomas had to compete as a woman. And the thing is that the larger scope of all of this is that we have a university that's enabling this. And I think that's the worst part. Okay, Lia Thomas, it is gross that you would force yourself upon these women visually by changing in front of them. That's gross. But the university not only enabling it, but also defending it, and then trying to re-educate. Basically throwing these girls in a metaphorical gulag to say, you must be comfortable with this. You must become comfortable with this. It's absolutely insane what our colleges and universities and our institutions are putting upon people to deny basic human truth and also take away their comfort in private spaces, in vulnerable spaces, in women's spaces. It's insane. Let's keep going with the rest of this testimony.
To sum up the university's response, we, the women, were the problem, not the victims. We were expected to conform, to move over, and shut up. Our feelings didn't matter. The university was gaslighting and fear-mongering women to validate the feelings and identity of a male. As an attempt to voice my concern about the situation we were forced into, revealing the unjust and unfair treatment, I wrote an op-ed for the Daily Pennsylvanian, the student-run newspaper. I approached this from a scientific, statistical perspective where I used my engineering background to discuss how Y chromosomes cannot be changed by any surgical procedure or systemic therapy. This biological fact lends itself to athletic advantages that cannot be mitigated by lowering testosterone levels, which are readily apparent in sports competitions and locker rooms. The Daily Pennsylvanian published my article on the evening of February 10th, 2022. Only a few hours later, my piece was retracted. I was given no notice nor reasoning. Again, I was silenced for my dissenting viewpoint and felt my First Amendment rights were denied by my university. This is representative of a greater issue, the destruction of free speech. Today, any discussion maintaining the sanctity of women's spaces is labeled transphobic, bigoted, and hateful. What's bigoted and hateful is the discrimination against women and the efforts to erase women and our equal opportunities, dignity, and safe spaces. One might ask, why do I speak so passionately about issues that seem hypothetical, or some may perceive as only impacting a small number of women? This is not hypothetical. This is real. I know women who have lost roster spots and spots on the podium. I know of women with sexual trauma who are adversely impacted by having biological males in their locker room without their consent. I know this because I am one of these women. I was sexually assaulted on June 3rd of 2016. I was only 16 years old. I was able to forgive my attacker, but violence against women still exists. Let us not forget the viral Me Too movement that empowered female victims to speak up. It casts a spotlight on the widespread prevalence of sexual assault and abuse, including in scholarly and educational institutions. Individuals on this committee have previously stated violence against women is all too common. I am grateful for those members who have brought awareness to the violence against women in the past, but unfortunately, there's still much to be done. As a sexual assault survivor, many policies pushed today completely ignore my experiences and many women like me. I ask the members of this committee, please consider this issue outside the lens of political affiliations and understand the true impact of ignoring the realities of womanhood. Future generations depend on us. Thank you for the opportunity to speak here today.
So that was Paula Scanlan addressing Congress on her experiences, not only as the former teammate of Lia Thomas, but also opening up about her sexual assault that happened when she was 16, at least according to the transcript I was reading. She did not say it in that statement, but the transcript of what her planned speech was claimed that it happened in a bathroom, obviously having to change in front of a biological man, being forced upon that by your university and by obviously the biological man himself can bring back significant trauma that I can't even begin to imagine. And I think that, and I broke a radio rule there. There's a radio rule where you're not really supposed to play clips over 1 to 2 minutes, or if you are going to, then you should consistently break it up around 1 minute. And I didn't, because what she talks about, each part of it goes hand in hand in hand. Obviously, I broke it up a little bit to try to fall under that rule, but there's so much to break down with this, starting off with everything that I talked about in the fact that it's a biological man changing in a woman's bathroom. And that speaks to a larger issue of a destruction of women's spaces. We are, I mean, you want to talk, there's this Barbie movie that came out, right? Everybody wants to talk about the Barbie movie. Barbie movie, apparently, I haven't seen it yet, so I can't speak to a significant amount of it. But one thing I do know that happens is it discusses female versus male gender roles and the idea of the quote unquote patriarchy. Well, you want to talk about a return to the patriarchy. You want to talk about a world in which men literally rule everything. It's a world in which we enable biological men to even parade around as females and then thus invade women's spaces. That's a return to the patriarchy. When we have a society that will enable men like William Thomas, that's his real name, William, to invade women's spaces in the locker room, invade their privacy, invade their comfort, and then also invade their sport, the thing that they put so much time and effort into, years and years and years and years into this sport, and then he comes out on top. Why? Because there's a clear biological difference between men and women, and it comes with a clear biological advantage for him in the pool. So that was Paula Scanlan's congressional testimony. I do have to take a break here on the radio, but you can always go check me out on Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, Twitter, or Rumble. You can feel free to interact with me in the comments. I'm going to be getting to some of those throughout the break here. But if you are listening on the radio, make sure you're listening to our sponsors. They support. I mean, yes, obviously they're getting advertising out of it, but them advertising with us supports us being able to get these messages out there. While you could have probably found that Paula Scanlan interview out there on your own, a lot of news media doesn't want to cover things like that. Yes, some of your conservative news media will, but a lot of people will not. And we need to make sure that we are spreading these messages as far and as wide as possible, because otherwise you have people that will consistently vote on the Democratic plantation because they don't realize that you have lefties in Congress that are perfectly fine with women being abused and assaulted in their spaces by biological men. No two ways around it. Everybody, we will be right back with more Speechless on Cities 92.9, the news and talk of Bloomington Normal and beyond. Catch you after the break. Hey, everybody on Facebook, Twitch, Twitter, Rumble, YouTube, wherever you're watching from. Thank you for tuning in. I appreciate it. Let's get to some comments here. Of course, I think that's probably one of the most important stories. I have another follow-up story to get to after that relates right to that of a more local issue. But I'm going to get to that later. Let's go through some of these comments here. Thank you guys for tuning in. License, great to have you. Great to see you. Oklahoma Chicken Cam, always great to see you as well. Born a Hawkeye, thank you so much for tuning in. If anybody is not currently subscribed to my channel on YouTube, go check it out. It's right up there. You can go, if you're not on YouTube, if you're on Facebook or anything, you can go check out the YouTube channel. That's where most of my content goes. Obviously, some of it also goes on to Rumble and our cities stuff, but you can always go check out. I have a daily show I now do on my YouTube channel. Some of the content I'm going to be covering today overlaps with the daily show for the primary reason that what was I even saying? Sorry, I just got so distracted. My mind, I'm all over the place. Most of the stuff goes straight to my YouTube because I don't have time to necessarily get it to every single platform, because I also manage a bunch of other YouTube channels with our station. But I love what I do. It's awesome. Bumpkin, how the heck did I land a radio show? I got a radio show back in 2021. It started off actually. A lot of people don't know the story. Maybe I should tell it on air too. I'll do my next segment will be my next short segment is answering this question. That's what I'll do. My next segment will answer that question because we're going to come back here in probably just about a minute. I don't know if you're even still watching, Bumpkin, but to answer the question, how the heck did I land a radio show? I can let you know that one. It's been a little while now. I like to go over that story every once in a while because it's fun. And I always get new listeners, new people tuning in. So we're on a break right now from the radio, but we will be right back and I will tell that story. How the heck did I get a radio show? Got about 25 seconds left, and then we will be back. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. I know it's not always easy watching a live stream where it's like I'm on the radio and so I got to like manage the breaks and everything, but I want to be as involved as possible. So obviously keep giving if you got any questions, comments, concerns, anything. I'm even keeping an eye on my Rumble over there. I see a few people watching there. Um just let me know anything that you have to say. I'll do my best to respond to it. If you disagree with me, I love that. I mean, just be respectful about disagreeing with me and understand that I'm not perfect. But I'll do everything that I can to answer your questions. Let's get back on the radio though. Hey, 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 Bloomington Normal. I'm your host, Kev Ferris, and you're listening to Speechless, which I am anything but when it comes to this show. And so I have a lot to cover, but this segment is a shorter one. And I got a question for anybody who is just tuning in and is maybe not listened to Cities 92.9 in a little bit, or maybe hasn't listened on this time. We are on Facebook, Twitch, Twitter, YouTube, and Rumble. You can go check me out there. Either look up Cities 92.9 for Facebook or Twitter, or Speechless with Kev Ferris, last name Phares. You can go check all those out on Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, and Rumble. That's me. Phares is the last name. Speechless with Kev. That's me. I'm Kev. And I got a question from somebody in one of the chats. And like I said, this is a shorter segment. We're going to get back into the politics and everything. Men invading women's spaces. We're going to get into all that. But I got this question on YouTube. And it's how the heck did I land a radio show? This is a guy, I've seen him on a few different like YouTube chats and everything, YouTube groups, Bumpkin. And he asked me how the heck I got a radio show. Well, it all started back in 2020, actually. Me and my good friend, if anybody has ever listened to my show before, I had a really good friend. His name he's still alive, Josh Bender. And I think he's listening right now. And a really good friend, Josh Bender, still my best friend. And we went to college together, and 2020 hit and COVID happened. And like any college guy has ever thought, like they always have gotten with their best friend at one point. They have a great conversation. I believe ours might have been in a McDonald's parking lot at like 2 a.m. And so we were in like a McDonald's parking lot late at night, and we just had a great conversation about some politics and stuff going on. We were like, we should start a podcast. And we did. We did start a podcast briefly. It was called Civil Discourse. And it got wind of some local people in politics in central Illinois, right around where we were going to college. And they were like, hey, you should come on our show. David Paul Blumenshine of Cities 92.9 invited me and Josh onto his show. And we were just going back and forth and back and forth. And thank God for David Paul Blumenshine, because then he ended up advocating for myself and Josh to get a show on Cities 92.9 with another person that was our friend at the time, Eduardo Monk. And so we all got a show together. And for about a few months, it was all three of us. Then Josh had to go student teach, but he came back occasionally. And then Eddie was on, but then Eddie ran for office. And so then it dwindled down to where now it's my show. And it's Speechless with Kev Ferris. And I can tell you, it is absolutely, it has absolutely changed my life to be able to talk with so many amazing people. But I have to give a big thank you to the people that have been with me from the beginning for this show. Obviously, Josh Bender, who was my vice president when I founded our Turning Point USA chapter at Illinois State University. I will thank David Paul Blumenshine for bringing us in and taking a chance on some two dumb college kids who had a podcast that I was completely editing on we were recording it on Discord. I can't tell you. I mean, for anybody, you might not know exactly what I'm talking about when I say that, but we were recording it on Discord, and I can't believe that we were able to do that. I edited it through like iMovie or something. Like I did not have the best resources and everything. But we were buddies, and we are coming up to a break here on the radio, but that's why I wanted to cover that story. Josh is still one of my best friends. If you are watching on my YouTube, you can go check out some of my other videos that I have. Just recently, I had Josh on last week when he was visiting Illinois. He now lives in Nevada. He's on his way back to Nevada right now with his dad, Bob Bender, and Kent. Josh, Bob, and Kent in the car all together listening to Speechless. I know they are. So great. Shout out for them. Thank you, Bumpkin, for the question. And if anybody else wants to ask any questions or have any conversation, feel free to go check out Cities 92.9 or Speechless with Kev Ferris on Facebook, Twitch, Twitter, YouTube, or Rumble. Or you could text or call in at the number 309-451-9299. I'd love to hear from you. 309-451-9299. We'll be right back with some more politics and news after that fun little anecdote. We'll be back with more politics and news in the next segment on Speechless on Cities 92.9, the news and talk of Bloomington Normal and beyond. Okay, let's get back into all this. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. I see I got some fun viewers, listeners on Facebook, everything like that. We got Bumpkin. Yes, I thank you. I appreciate the compliment. Wholesome story, 100%. Ryan Mack, our good friend Ryan Mack. I think I just begged and annoyed you guys to get me on. I wouldn't mind being back soon either. I have better schedule coming up. Okay, we'll see. We'll see what we can do. Right, we'll see. Maybe Ryan Mack of the Ryan Mack Show. You can go look that up. I don't know if he's still doing his podcast and stuff. I don't know if he's still doing his podcast and stuff, but if he is, you can go look up the Ryan Mack Show. He was a former host of Cities, some scheduling conflicts, but we'll see if we can get him back on at some point. See, I got a few hecklers in my YouTube comments here. Anything you guys got to say, I don't even care if you're a heckler. You can heckle me. I don't care. And if it's funny and I can do something about it, then I'll respond and I'll do something like that. Let's see what else we got here. I got license probably in let's see what else we got here. Took a break, but plan on ramping it back up again. Awesome. Oh man, we got some graphic people on my YouTube channel. Well, and he knows who he is. But everybody who's tuning in right now, thank you guys so much for tuning in. We are on a break from the radio, but we will be back soon with an interesting story locally out of Illinois regarding men invading women's spaces. It is a story from earlier this month, but I thought it went well with Paula Scanlan's uh, testimony to Congress that I was covering. I got some other stories to cover here too, but this will be this one. It was a really big deal. Actually, Riley Gaines started talking about it when she was on my YouTube show and radio show a little over almost 2 months ago now. I'm getting texts from Josh. I don't know if they're listening on YouTube, but if they're listening on YouTube, Kent, I love you too. Kent, I just shouted him out. He's a good buddy of mine and Josh's. Kent, I love you too. Don't worry. Man, well, thank you guys so much for tuning in, each and every one of you. I know I say that, but I genuinely mean it. I do mean it. You guys are, I mean, I'll be honest, it's been an interesting day for me. I played babysitter last night with some people from the bar, but so I'm a little tired, but I've had a lot of fun producing DPB's show, and I always have fun talking to you guys. This is why I do it. I mean, I get to have some fascinating conversation with people from all across the country through these comment sections. I get to have fascinating conversations with people that are in the own locality of Bloomington Normal. And I just love it. I mean, I love the fact that I get to interact with so many people and have serious conversations about serious issues. So I really do love that. That's why I do what I do. This is good advice. I don't know what it has to do with what I was necessarily talking about, but it's absolutely good advice. Drugs, don't do them. No, don't do them. You don't need to do drugs. Well, not like illicit drugs or ones that you don't have a prescription for. Shouldn't do those drugs, but yep. Well, thank you guys so much. I got another thing to talk about. I'm going to talk about it in the next break. Stay tuned. I got news. It's kind of news, bigger news-ish news that I want to cover on the live stream, and I will. But I'm going to come back here in probably about a minute, and so I don't have time to get through the new news. Hey, Unconventional, great to see you. I love that you're here. Well, I do have the weekly one, and I don't know if you tune in anytime Unconventional, but I do have a daily show now that I do on. I mean, that's not live. I do premieres, but you could still watch it if you'd like. And Bornock, amazing job striving for what you wished for, which is information to get out in the society that's educated. Absolutely. I mean, that's the thing. And I always tell people I could be wrong. I could be wrong. I mean, the majority of my show really is just finding a news article or a video and then reacting to it and giving my opinion. But I also want to share your guys' opinions too. And so if you think I'm wrong, or if you see it a little bit differently, leave it in the comments, leave it in the chat. I want to hear that. And I'll bring your point up if it's worth bringing up. But then I get some people that like, they'll just be like, Kevin, you're an idiot. Like I got texts from people saying really awful things. And like, I don't care. Like I can deal with it. I get it. Like I put myself into the public eye through having a radio show. And so, yeah, I can get the texts at 309-451-9299 if you want to text in. And I can get those, and you can call me slurs and very unkind things, go for it. But all that you're telling me is that I'm right. Because if I was wrong, you would be able to articulate why I was wrong. Instead, people go and just resort to ad hominem attacks. So go for it. Do that. It's funny, to me at least. All right, we're coming back here on the radio. Hey, and welcome back to Speechless on Cities 92.9, the news and talk of Bloomington Normal. I am the host, Kev Phares. Sorry, my mind's been going all over the place today. I got a lot of different stories to cover. I'm getting questions, I'm taking chats and everything, and I'm having a good time. I'm having a good time in studio today. It's a fun day for me. I mean, I know we've had some interesting weather, and there's some stories with that. Apparently, it's the mega Republicans' fault that we got some warmer weather out there. But I got another story to cover first. In my first segment of the show today, I covered the entire Paula Scanlan, the former teammate of biological male but swims with female Lia Thomas. I covered her testimony to Congress, Paula Scanlan's. Paula Scanlan opened up significantly about her sexual assault that had happened in a bathroom when she was 16, and how and paralleled it with the fact that biological male Lia Thomas was forcing himself upon, and the school was also allowing for it and enabling it for him to also be changing in that locker room. Well, to bring it more local, just about 2 weeks ago, it was broken by Fox News that a teen girl was accused of hate speech after protesting transgenders in an Illinois YMCA locker room. An Illinois teenager who had voiced concerns to her swim coach about biological males identifying as transgender women being allowed in the girls' locker room said she was accused of, quote, hate speech. Yes, last April, 16-year-old Abigail Wheeler, a swimmer on the Springfield YMCA Spy swim team, entered the girls' locker room to change when she noticed a couple transgender individuals sitting there. Her father told Illinois-based podcast host Jeannie Ives. Jeannie Ives, frequent contributor to this show, good friend of mine. And so he joined her podcast to discuss that the head coach, swim coach, Alex Tachura, was informed of the situation, but told Wheeler, the girl, there was nothing he could do about it. A few weeks later, parents voiced concerns at a monthly meeting, but were told again by the local branch's chief executive officer, Angie Soul, that there was nothing they could do about biological males in the girls' changing areas. There's just nothing we could do. Requests by parents to ask trans individuals to use the private bathrooms and send out an email informing the swim team of the policy were denied by the YMCA, according to Wheeler's father. And after the head coach allegedly laughed off the girls' concerns during another conversation, and the YMCA abruptly canceled a planned parent meeting over the issue, the teen and another teammate hung protest signs in the female-only areas. Wheeler's signs read, "Women's rights, biological women only, and safe sport." Safe Sport is a U.S. non-for-profit authorized by Congress that is dedicated to end physical, emotional, and sexual abuse in sports. When Wheeler, the young girl, 16-year-old, told her coach that she had made the signs, he reportedly accused her of hate speech. She was not allowed to participate with the swim team and was asked to leave the pool area, her father claimed. This is absolutely insane. One person that spoke out significantly about this, she started actually speaking about it on my show, Riley Gaines, actually alluded to the story before it broke back in early June. But she also tweeted about this, blew it up, and obviously Fox News reported this. What is insane to me is how this coach, here's the thing, is let's even take this I want to talk about the women's sports being invaded issue. I want to talk about that, but we also just want to talk about how bad of a coach this guy is. So this coach has his team come to him and say, we have this issue. And what does the coach do? The coach laughs at them, ignores them, and then claims that they are the problem. Look, I don't care what the issue is. That's just bad coaching. I'm going to talk about the actual politics of this and the gender and social ideology and everything, but that's just bad coaching. You're laughing at your team for bringing up a serious concern that they have, ignoring their concern, and then getting mad at them when they try to address that concern on their own. What kind of coach does that? a bad one. This is just a bad coach, period. But then we bring it to the further issue where it's not just a teammate coming up and saying, oh my gosh, like I have this light problem with another person on the team. Or no, this is you have multiple people on the team that are coming up and saying there are biological men using our locker room. We are underage girls. This makes us not only uncomfortable, but also, I mean, if it was not for the woke mob that pushes for this kind of quote unquote acceptance, it would be considered a felony, indecent exposure. If any dude walked into a women's bathroom, a women's locker room, and just exposed himself, they would be arrested. Unless they said, no, don't worry. Don't worry, everybody. I'm a woman. And you have these girls that are trying to fight for themselves, fight for their own, not only comfort, but safety. And their coach says that they have used hate speech. First off, what is hate speech? That's idiotic. That's just an idiot. The entire idea of hate speech is just stupid because technically any speech that in some way doesn't like something is hate speech. I hate broccoli. Hate speech. It's so stupid. I mean, there are limits, and if we want to go down the road of free speech and everything like that, there are limits on our free speech. Anybody who is like, oh my gosh, we need absolute unadulterated free speech. Okay, well, that's also not true. You cannot directly threaten anybody. You cannot yell fire in a crowded theater or anything like that. Like, their calls to direct violence are not protected. But there was no calls of direct violence in this. All this girl did is made signs that said, basically, Safe Sport, which is a U.S. nonprofit authorized by Congress dedicated to ending physical, emotional, and sexual abuse in sports. So she's calling for making sure that there's not physical, emotional, or basically any kind of abuse in sports. And she gets told that's hate speech. This poor girl. And her dad obviously has been fighting for her as well, appearing on Jeannie Ives' podcast, exposing this. And this is in Springfield, Illinois, everybody. This story, if you're just tuning in, you're tuning into Speechless on Cities 92.9. I'm your host, Phares. And there's an Illinois teenager who was accused of hate speech because she wanted to protest that there are biological men in her YMCA's locker room. Female locker room. Where are we at as a society where this is acceptable? And I get people that tell me, because I got other stories to cover too, obviously, today, but I am going to have to take a break here real quick on the radio. But where have we come as a society? Where have we come as a society where you are trying to advocate for your safety and advocate for the law? I mean, like, you can't, and like I said, any man who walks into a woman's locker room and exposes himself should be arrested. There are laws that say that they should be arrested unless you identify as a woman. Where are we as a society? What is going on here, everybody? Well, in the next segment, everybody, I got more to cover. I'm going to talk a little bit about all these presidential candidates who squared off in Iowa and had a lot to do there. And coming after that later, I'm going to talk about the weather. Yep, the weather is political now. It really is. It really is. Apparently, it's all MAGA Republicans' fault. We're going to cover that and a lot more in the next few segments of Speechless. Stay tuned. I'm your host, Kev Phares. We got a lot more to talk about on Speechless. I'm your host, Kev Phares, and we will be right back on Cities 92.9, the news and talk of Bloomington Normal and beyond. Oof. I cannot believe that coach. Let's see what we got going on here. I did see this one. I have to do more research on it. I got to be honest, I've been pretty busy. But that's one I will likely cover on my daily show, on my YouTube channel. Unconventional. How insane. That's absolutely right. It is insane. This is Kev. You're right, man. It is very important for everyone to be more informed, to be active about supporting America, Illinois, and Bloomington Normal. What's red and tastes like blue paint? Red paint. It's still paint. You're funny. You're funny, License. You're funny. I'm reading through your guys' comments. Oh, okay. This is what I was going to cover during this break. So you like socialism, Kevin? So your shirt is hate speech. I'll see you in court. Yeah, pretty ridiculous. But so I have this shirt, Anti-Socialism Social Club. If you guys like things like this, so I actually have, I'll show you guys their website. This is a website called United Merch. Pull it up on screen here. You can look through here. You can see there's a bunch of cool shirts. There's other ones. I plead the second, cancel culture, anything like the FJB stand for something patriotic or patriotic merch co. It's called United Merch Co. UnitedMerch.com. I'll put this up on screen here. If you guys visit their website and you want to get anything, you can use code Speechless. I'm technically an ambassador for them. You can use code Speechless at checkout for 20% off because they're awesome. They really are. They're awesome. Yep, you can shop their best sellers, everything they got there. Yep. So use code Speechless if you would like to get any. Again, use United Merch Co. or UnitedMerch.com. Use code Speechless to check out for 20% off. We are going to be back here soon on the radio. Do not worry. Stay tuned. We got a lot more to talk about. So, license, honestly, it's up to you. I mean, I always appreciate any kind of, I mean, I always have obviously my Cash App and stuff at the bottom there. I'm going to be applying for monetization soon. I'm real close to their lower standards now of monetization. And so, uh, if you would like to donate, I will always accept it and I appreciate it. But if you want to get a shirt, I won't blame you. I mean, that would also be, it's another way of supporting the show. And it would also get you obviously a shirt like mine where you could wear it around and be like, oh, hey, everybody, Anti-Socialism Social Club. I don't know. I mean, like, it's up to you. It's up to you. I'm fine with whatever. I just appreciate any support for the show. And either way, that is you going to United Merch Co., UnitedMerch.com, using Speechless at checkout, 20% off. That's another way you can support the show. Because they're really, I mean, it's supporting, because you're not just supporting the show, because the show is not, it's not about just the show. It's not about this show. It's not about me. It's about a movement. And I've always said, I've always hated social media. It's never been my thing. But for a long time, I was getting invited to like different Republican events, conservative events, and they'd usually a lot of times ask me to do a 5-10 minute speech, something like that. And I started having people saying like, whoa, like you got to get this to like a broader audience. And I got into radio, and I like radio because radio is like kind of fun. It's retro a little bit, but it also can be kind of casual like this. Like I'm just conversational with you guys right now. Like I don't have to be like, yeah, I can get a little bit more professional when I'm reading a news article and everything like that, but it can be more casual. And so I like it. And then people were like, well, not many people listen to the radio anymore. And they're kind of right. I mean, we have a decent following here at Cities 92.9. We got people that really support us, but they're kind of right in the fact that we should be advancing and trying to go further. And so yeah, I mean, like so I got into social media now. I don't know exactly where I'm going with all this. But so now I'm like going into social media. I'm on Instagram. I've always been on Instagram, but now I'm more active on it. Now I'm very active on YouTube, as many of you know, Facebook, everything like that. And so now I've gotten more into social media to get the message out there, because that's ultimately what it's about. It's because I was told by multiple people that I apparently can articulate a lot of people's opinions well. And so, and I could mess it up sometimes. That's why I like the comments section, because if you guys leave me comments, I can always make sure that I'm saying my opinion to its fullest ability, but also voicing any other opinion that even might differ with mine. And so I just appreciate being able to get the message out there. It's not about me. If you want to donate to the show, obviously fight against the woke mind virus and support the show through either my Venmo or my Cash App, feel free to do that. But it's also supporting the show if you wanted to go to UnitedMerchCo.com, UnitedMerch.com. I keep saying United Merch Co. on this sleeve right here. It's just United Merch, but they're like Instagram or something is United Merch Co. All right, we're about to come back here live on the radio, so let's get to it. And we are back with Speechless on Cities 92.9, the news and talk of Bloomington Normal. This is going to be We've got about 10 minutes, so I can do this segment good. But I'm your host, Kev Phares, everybody. We got a lot to cover here today. I got a few more stories. I want to get to the 13 GOP presidential candidates that made their pitch at an Iowa Lincoln Day dinner in the last, I believe it was Friday they did that. But I want to make sure I have a longer segment for that one. This one isn't a short segment, but I want to make sure I have a longer one. But I want to cover interesting legislation coming out of Illinois. Obviously, I live in Illinois, and so it's a bit more local. And you guys have heard about some of these bills and everything, but it's starting to make national headlines because of just how absurd this legislation is. Illinois governor signs bill allowing foreign nationals to become police officers. This is out of the Daily Wire. Governor J.B. Pritzker signed a bill on Friday that would allow foreign nationals in the state to become police officers. That's serious. It's a real thing that's happening. So people that are citizens of other countries and not necessarily citizens of America can become police officers, enforce our laws. People that have broken our laws can enforce them. The bill, which was opposed by some police groups, including the Fraternal Order of Police, was one of 130 bills Pritzker signed on Friday. I got to be honest, I have yet to go through every single of one of those 130 bills, but I plan to, and this is just one of the bills that is of utmost importance for us to know about. Effective immediately, foreign nationals will now be able to become police officers in the state of Illinois. The law, HB 3751, says that foreign nationals who are, quote, legally authorized under federal law to work in the United States, or any foreign national who, quote, is an individual against whom immigration action has been deferred by the U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services under the federal DACA process, can apply to become a police officer in the state. So you cannot necessarily be a full-on illegal immigrant like somebody. You can't just like cross over the border or fly in and go into Illinois and be like, hey, I'm going to become a police officer. But you can be a person that was a illegal immigrant and then applied for DACA and become so still not a United States citizen, and become a police officer. What kind of backwards thinking is this? It makes no sense. The Fraternal Order of Police condemned the bill earlier this year after it was passed in the state house, saying, quote, what message does this legislation send when it allows people who do not have legal status to become the enforcers of our laws? The group said in a statement, this is a potential crisis of confidence in law enforcement at a time when our officers need all the public confidence they can get. And that's what has significantly happened in Illinois and a lot of Dem states, right? Is we have states that are consistently beating down cops. Like, no doubt, no way around it. You have Illinois, who back in 2020 calls for defunding the police. We had cities getting absolutely wrecked, destroyed all over the country, not just in Illinois, but Illinois specifically did have riots and protests and everything, all saying absolutely absurd things I can't even say on the radio about who the police are. There's a certain ACAB, all cops are a B word that I'm not allowed to say. That's the kinds of things that the left has pushed about the cops. They did that. Then they push the Safety Act in Illinois that ends cash bail and undermines police authority. How does it undermine police authority? Well, when you have criminals that can literally commit murder or armed robbery and be out of prison within days, be out of jail, not prison, be out of jail within days because of the ending of cash bail. What does that say to the cops? The cops who might be put in harm's way obtaining these criminals, and then you just let them back out on the street? And now we're just going to let anybody become a cop. You could be somebody who's broken our laws and never had to pay you didn't get deported. You had no retribution for breaking our immigration laws. And now you can become a cop. During the debate on the bill, Illinois State Senator Chapin Rose said it would be a fundamental breach of democracy to allow non-citizens to arrest American citizens. I don't disagree. It's just a fundamentally bad idea, Rose said in May. I don't care where this individual is from, Australia. They should not be able to arrest a United States citizen on United States soil. This also all comes as Illinois has been facing shortages of police officers as the state and major metro areas like Chicago have pursued policies largely opposed by police. Just like I had said. There's interesting, though, is there's other legislation that's coming out of Springfield that Pritzker signed. Another one being Other controversial bills, including one requiring state agencies to add non-binary or gender non-conforming categories to employment records. Okay, that one's obviously controversial. It's very expected though. So again, state agencies have to add non-binary or gender non-conforming categories to their employment records. It does not surprise me. It is just absolutely enabling the delusion that there's no gender. You can be, because here's the thing: is even in the idea of some trans ideology, it kind of makes sense. I want to say, when I say it makes sense that at least gender still exists on a binary. Like you either pretend to be female or you pretend to be male. This is one that I never got, is non-binary or gender non-conforming, right? And let me know in the comments or text in at 309-451-9299. What do you think about this? It doesn't totally make sense to me. This idea that you don't have a gender, you don't, but you're non-binary, so you exist somewhere in between. Like, what are you? What are you? Like, I guess I don't need a label, but it's just like, so it's a fantasy land, everybody. That's really what it is. You want an answer? What is it? It's a fantasy land. It's a big game of pretend that people use their entire lives for. But another bill that was signed into law in Illinois this last week that targets crisis pregnancy centers. The law will now allow Illinois Attorney General to investigate a case of alleged consumer fraud against crisis pregnancy centers accused of, quote, deceptive practices. The law is largely taking aim at pro-life centers that suggest an association between abortion and breast cancer or infertility. Right to Life executive director Mary Kate Zander said that the measure was, quote, politically motivated and totally unsubstantiated. The Thomas More Society, a conservative law firm that fights in defense of religious liberty and free speech, filed a suit against the law on Thursday, saying this law is a blatant attempt to chill and silence pro-life speech under the guise of, quote, consumer protection. Society executive president and head of litigation, Peter Breen, said pregnancy help ministries provide real options and assistance for women and families in need, but instead of getting the praise they deserve, pro-abortion politicians are targeting these ministries with $50,000 fines and injunctions solely because of their pro-life viewpoint. I've talked to people of pro-life, part of pro-life crisis pregnancy centers, and I've talked to them about this bill, and that's pretty much exactly what I hear, is that this bill is not about actually trying to have equal justice under the law and equal protection under the law. They're not going to investigate places like Planned Parenthood for consumer fraud or pushing people to get abortions. I mean, there's actual investigative journalism. James O'Keefe actually did this. There's real investigative journalism of undercover reporters going into Planned Parenthoods and saying, I want to donate money to only abort black babies. And they accept the donation and thank them for it. But no. We're not going to focus on investigating anything like that in Illinois. We're going to investigate places that try to help women through their pregnancy. Yes, they advocate for being pro-life. They do not advocate for the abortion of the child. But that's who we're going to investigate, is the people that actually want to help mothers, help women. Crisis pregnancy centers. There's so much legislation that came, 130 bills. There's 130 bills that were passed by Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker in the last few days. And I'm going to try to read through all of them. I'll try to cover a lot of them on my daily show of the most controversial ones. Those are the three. Again, the three that were most important to recognize first are the targeting crisis pregnancy centers, putting non-binary into state employment records, and then allowing illegal immigrants to be cops, essentially, basically. All right, well, everybody, we got to come back in the next hour. We got so much more to cover here on Speechless, but thank you for tuning in. Stay through it with me through the break, and we will be right back. I'm your host, Kev Phares, and you're listening to Speechless on Cities 92.9, the news and talk of Bloomington Normal and beyond. Okie dokie, everybody. I have to take a break. I have this little background. I'm going to change everything too. I have to go to the bathroom. I'll be right back. We still have another hour of the show. Please stay with me. I understand if you got to log off for a second, but do not worry. I got more to cover in the next few segments. So stay with me. Okie dokie, everybody. We're about to come back on the radio. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'm your host, Kev Phares, and let's get right on into it. Okay. Hey, Bloomington Normal. Welcome back to Speechless. I'm your host, Kev Phares. Thank you so much for tuning in today. I do want to give a big shout out. I'm usually do this at the beginning of the show, but honestly slipped my mind today. It's been an interesting day for me, but I want to give a big shout out to Paul Garcia Productions, who sponsors this show. Paul Garcia Productions out of Bloomington Normal, Central Illinois, does amazing video production work for local businesses. If you're looking to grow your business and make more business, you want to make more business, you got to contact Paul Garcia Productions today. Paul Garcia does amazing work. If you want to know how we've been able to, a lot of people know that Cities 92.9 has expanded to not only be just a radio station, but we're also working into the media sphere now. We now stream on Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, Twitter, Rumble. At least I do. I know some of our other hosts do Facebook, Twitter, and Rumble and YouTube. You can go check out all of our channels there. I'm your host, Kev Phares, and Paul Garcia Productions is the one who helped us with that, helping out with the cameras and making sure that we're bringing good quality content to you guys in the broadest forms possible, so we can spread these messages as many places as possible. So everybody, don't forget to go, if you're driving in your car right now, that's fine. But you can also check out the live streams on Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, Twitter, Rumble, Speechless with Kev Phares, last name Phares, or you can check us out on our Cities 92.9 Facebook page. Do not forget to like, subscribe, and share. No matter where you're looking from, you can like, subscribe, and share, and then leave me a comment. You can interact with me. I can interact with you, everything like that. You can do all that. You can leave me a comment, or you could always text or call in at 309-451-9299. Again, that number is 309-451-9299. I'd love to hear what you guys have to say. And if you want to call in and ask and talk about anything that I'm talking about here, feel free to. And here's a topic that you might want to call in and talk about. 309-451-9299 is that number. Also, leave me a comment. I'm going to scroll through those a little bit, especially during our breaks. But here's the thing that we're going to be talking about now is 13 GOP presidential candidates made their pitch at an Iowa Lincoln Day dinner. This is our 2024 update. I always like to do these and talk about what's going on with our 2024 election, because obviously, and I covered a little bit of this, I'm going to actually do a brief recap of what I talked about on my, I do a daily show on my YouTube channel now, everybody. So if you go to Speechless with Kev Phares, and we don't necessarily have times in the logs for me to be able to do a radio show every day. But I do a daily show on my YouTube. And this last Friday, Kat and I, conservative Kat Peterson, you guys know her, you love her. We talked about how some different statewide polls have gone. And so we looked at how there's one New Hampshire poll that has Vivek beating Ron DeSantis. Obviously, Donald Trump's still at the top of that poll, but there's others that have even there was one that was Ohio that had Vivek over Ron, but there was also another poll from New Hampshire that had DeSantis over Trump even, actually. And so there's polls that are all over the place. And here's the first thing I want to say about polls, everybody, is so back in 2015 so if you compare the election cycles, 2015 to what we have in 2023, same time before the primary and presidential elections, Jeb Bush was the leader for Jeb Bush was going to be the primary and general candidate for the Republican Party. And obviously that'll change. So there's still a lot of time, but it's really interesting to see the pitches that these presidential candidates are making. Like I said, out of the Des Moines Register, so right out of Iowa, 13 GOP presidential candidates make their pitch at an Iowa Lincoln Day dinner. Donald Trump was sticking to prepared remarks and touts his history with Iowa and polling lead. The last speaker of the night, obviously, former President Donald Trump, the current frontrunner in the majority of polls out in the United States. The Trump stuck almost entirely to strictly prepared remarks, joking that he was going to go quickly, which is really funny for him. I don't know if you guys have probably seen a Trump speech, if not been to one in person. And he oftentimes goes long. I mean, I was just at down in West Palm Beach, Florida at a Turning Point Action Conference, and he spoke for nearly 2.5 to 3 hours. He spoke very long. But this apparently in Iowa, he stuck strictly to prepared remarks. And he said, we did a lot of things. It's hard to do that quickly, Trump said. As he took the stage, the crowd rose to its feet with many snapping photos and videos. He highlighted his administration's tariffs on China that directed money to U.S. farmers, his reworking of a North American trade deal, and his support of ethanol and E15 fuel. He said, quote, Iowa has never been a better friend in the White House, he said as he began his remarks. Trump did, however, criticize Biden's withdrawal from the war in Afghanistan, as many did, arguing it was the incentive for Vladimir Putin to invade Ukraine. He waved off his multiple pending civil and criminal court cases, saying that, quote, if I weren't running, I would have nobody coming after me. He continued to cite baseless claims that the 2020 presidential election was rigged. And he, when I say baseless, this is a opinionated article, obviously. But here's the thing that we're going to talk about when it comes to Trump. Trump is obviously the front runner. Trump is the front runner. I mean, it's clear. And a lot of people see it as only Trump. And I'm not against Trump. I've been clear on my show before that if the election were held today, Trump would not be my pick. It would be DeSantis. Ron DeSantis would be my pick. And I have a lot of arguments and conversations with people about Trump, DeSantis, Vivek, all these other people. And at the end of the day, you want to know what I really am? You want to know where I really lie on this issue? I lie on the fact that we need to get Joe Biden or whoever the Democrats pick. That's the big thing, everybody. A lot of people say that it's just going to be Joe Biden. I don't know. Is Joe Biden really there enough? Is Joe Biden really there enough to be running for president in 2024? Maybe. Maybe they're going to weekend at Bernie's, weekend at Biden's him through that election. But I want to support whoever the general candidate is at the end of the day. And a lot of this infighting has become too extreme. And we need to be able to get behind a general candidate, whoever it is. And like I said, right now it seems to be Trump is the front runner, but Jeb Bush was also the front runner back in 2015. A lot can change, especially after that first debate. I want to remind everybody, this is actually something I was just having a conversation with a good friend of mine yesterday about this. And I want to remind everybody that the first debate in 2015, the first Republican presidential primary debate between, I mean, it was obviously a whole slate of people, Ted Cruz, Ben Carson, Trump, and Jeb Bush. The only person that was willing to stand up and say something that everybody knew was Donald Trump at the time. What did he say? Donald Trump got up on that stage back in 2015. I was only 14 years old, actually, when the debate took place. And I remember Donald Trump went up on stage and he pointed at Jeb Bush and he said, you knew that the Middle East did not have weapons of mass destruction. And yet we still sent Americans to die based on that lie. We sent Colin Powell to the UN to say that we knew they had weapons of mass destruction. We knew when we really knew the truth that we did not have weapons of mass destruction. And that was the way I see it, that was an absolute turning point for not only the Republican Party, but for America. And why do I see it that way? Well, it was at that point that people started saying, hey, maybe this isn't necessarily, it gave rise significantly to the idea of a populist conservative movement. One that now Trump, Tucker Carlson, I'd even say Ron DeSantis really head up. It's a populist conservative movement. It's saying that, maybe our issue is not Republican versus Democrat. Maybe that's not our main issue. Maybe it's establishment versus the people. Establishment, the Bushes, the Clintons, people like that, McConnell, McCarthy to some extent. Maybe it's them and how they have lied to the American people consistently, how they've been career politicians and just stayed in office and practically done nothing except for advance their own wallets and personal agendas. And Trump got on stage in 2015 and absolutely changed the game in terms of Republican and conservative politics in the fact that now we have an entire a significant portion of the party, the Republican Party, that now questions the establishment as much as it questions the opposition because they are one and the same. The establishment is the opposition, and the establishment is within our own party. And we need to question that. And Trump did that. And that's why I'm saying that no matter how much you think that Trump is a shoo-in right now, we need to, I just had somebody comment on here, AABB, almost anybody but Biden, basically. That's what we need to be at as a conservative Republican Party. That's where I'm at with it. I get it. Some people might want to write me off because I'm a 22-year-old conservative college kid. No, I don't know everything, but I do know good politics. And you want to know what good politics is? The Democrats actually do it really well. The Democrats come out and say, hey, we're going to let Bernie run. We're going to let him run. We're going to let him run. Because what that'll do is that'll rile up a base that is typically skeptical of the Democrat Party. Your Democrat socialists, your kind of more fringe left-wingers. But they're going to let him run so they can rile that base up, pull him in, and then say, no. No more Bernie. We're gonna install Hillary Clinton. We're gonna install Joe Biden as our candidates. And we're gonna say, Bernie people, you need to vote for this because look at what the other side is doing. And now I'm not saying that the Republican Party should install our nominee. We shouldn't do that. And there are some people that are actually looking to try to make it so we have a comparable policy. I have to look into a little bit more. I don't know everything about it, but I know that the way that they do delegates for the Democrat Party is different than the way that the Republican Party currently does it, and it makes it so they can practically install their nominee. And I'm not saying we should do that as a Republican Party, but we do need to find a way to, no matter where you fall in terms of candidates, we all get behind the general candidate. Assuming it's not like, I don't know, Asa Hutchinson. As long as it's not Asa Hutchinson, then we should all get behind him, or Mike Pence. That being said, there were other candidates that obviously took the stage that have been making names and waves for themselves, one being Vivek Ramaswamy, who promises to shut down federal agencies and bring about a, quote, revolution. Entrepreneur Vivek Ramaswamy promised Republicans in Iowa to take on the bureaucratic deep state by shutting down a swath of federal agencies if elected president. He said, quote, when you have an agency that should not exist, an agency that has become so corrupt that it has abandoned the rule of law, from the U.S. Department of Education to the FBI, to the IRS, to the ATF, to the CDC, we will not just reform them, we will shut them down. That is how we restore the integrity of a constitutional republic. Ramaswamy said there are good people in the Republican presidential race who will advocate for reforming federal institutions, but that it is a false promise, he said. They don't know it's a false promise, he said. When those institutions, when that government, when that deep state has become so rotten, we can no longer just fix it from the top. This is not a moment for reform. I don't stand for reform. I stand for revolution, he said. I'm actually in heavy agreement with this. Look, our bureaucratic agencies, all of our three-letter agencies that you know, the FBI, IRS, ATF, DOE, Department of Education, all of them, they have become basically a fourth branch of government. And in some cases, just when they're supposed to be nonpartisan, they do the bidding of, in this case, the president. I mean, look at our DOJ indicting Donald Trump for things that other candidates in this race, Joe Biden, Mike Pence, are also guilty of, or at least accused of. Everybody has the presumption of innocence. We have a entire fourth branch of government that is acting independently and independently, but not independent in terms of objectivity. They're acting in the best interests of whoever pays them the most or whoever gives them the most power. And so, yeah, why do we have such an expansive federal government? Look, I understand the need for obviously like a military. And sure, I can understand in some ways a need for FBI, for intelligence agencies, but the power we have given them has become way too strong. And Vivek makes a wonderful point. And here's the biggest thing about Vivek, bringing it back to the politics of this. He's playing an incredibly smart game. Vivek Ramaswamy is doing what I call Trumpian politics of 2016. Vivek knows that he kind of has an uphill battle in terms of name recognition, people that know him, everything like that. And what he's doing is he's playing the media. He comes out every few weeks and says something that sounds incredibly radical, but he says it in a hyper intelligent way. And then it catches media narrative, catches media attention. So like he came out a few months ago with this policy of 25, you got to be 25 to vote. And if you're not 25, if you're under 25, 18 to 25, you got to pass the citizenship test, or you got to be a first responder, military, anything like that. Absolutely radical idea. Insanely radical idea. But it caught headlines. And that's exactly what he's doing right here. We should abolish the FBI, IRS, ATF, CDC, everything like that. It's catching headlines. He takes a radical approach, catches headlines, makes media attention, and that's why he's polling as high as Ron DeSantis in some polls. He's doing a great job. You had other people that obviously attended this event, Larry Elder, Ryan Binkley, who's a lesser known, Francis Suarez, excuse me, Will Hurd, Mike Pence, I believe Ron DeSantis was there, Doug Burgum, so many presidential candidates attending this Iowa thing. I could do an entire, it could be my entire 2 hours just talking about this event. And in the next segment, I will get into a little bit more about what some of the other candidates said, but we will be right back after a few messages from our sponsors before I get into that. And then also later, I'm going to talk about the weather because that's been politicized now. We're going to talk about Mitch McConnell freezing up. We got high temps. It's getting hot outside, but we also got cold, frozen Mitch McConnell. Not Mike Pence. I might have misspoke and said Mike Pence. Mitch McConnell. Everybody, we'll be right back with more Speechless on City 92.9, the news and talk of Bloomington Normal. Stay tuned. I'm your host, Kev Phares. News and talk of Bloomington Normal and beyond, everybody. Hey, everybody on the live stream. How are we doing? Let's get to talking here. I know that I kind of took a long time talking about both Trump and Vivek on there, but obviously those are big ones. I talk about DeSantis a lot. I do talk about DeSantis a lot. Thanks for everybody going. And where in the Constitution that's something that has to do with much further back. The last days, God will be. All need to be shut down. Yep. Or at least given a pause. Absolutely. Slap the like button. I'd appreciate it. Don't forget to like, subscribe, share. I know this show's kind of all over the place today, everybody, but I appreciate you bearing with me. I'm doing my best. It's a Sunday. I don't know about you guys, but I'm feeling like a lazy Sunday. I need a little bit of rest. I've been working hard on those daily shows a lot for you guys on YouTube. Everybody, if you're watching on Facebook or anything, go check out my YouTube channel. Speechless with Kev Phares. I do daily shows there, which I get to everything as succinctly as possible. This next one will be a short segment. I'm going to cover a little bit more about what some of these presidential candidates had to say. Oh, and I'll cover that one. That's what I'll cover. I know what we're going to talk about in the next segment. We'll be back here in about 20 seconds, everybody. Thanks for bearing with me. I hope you're all having a wonderful Sunday. Thank you for tuning in. Hey, Bloomington Normal. Welcome back to Speechless. I'm your host, Kev Phares, and I got a lot to cover, and this is a short segment, so we're going to kind of dive right into it. But real quick, don't forget, if you guys are watching if you want to, you can always watch on Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, Twitter, or Rumble if you're not in your car. I don't want to advocate for anybody to be watching a video while you're driving or anything, but you can go watch on those, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video if you're watching on any of those. And you can also be able to see some of the clips that I'm about to play. Well, you could also hear them too if you are listening, because I'll make sure that you can hear them on the radio. But let's get right back into this. So I was talking about the GOP presidential candidates. There was 13 of them that went and spoke at an Iowa Lincoln Day dinner just over on Friday. And one person, obviously, I covered Trump and Vivek in the last segment. There's obviously plenty of others in the race, some that you might not have even heard of. But the third that I want to cover is Ron DeSantis. He got a standing ovation at this event after attacking Kamala Harris in his ongoing fight over the Florida slavery curriculum. So I do want to cover just about a week ago, Kamala Harris went to Florida and had a rant about the slavery curriculum. Yeah, she ranted about it, got very heated. I'm going to play a little bit of this clip for everybody to hear because she absolutely misidentifies what this curriculum says. And it's kind of, it's actually hilarious. So everybody, let's take a look and a listen here.
They push forward revisionist history.
False.
Just yesterday in the state of Florida, they decided middle school students will be taught that enslaved people benefited from slavery. They insult us in an attempt to gaslight us, and we will not stand for it.
That voice is so
joining us now, the host.
Annoying, so shrill and annoying. But that was Kamala Harris absolutely misrepresenting exactly what this Florida education standard says. What the actual education curriculum actually says is, I'm trying to find, I got it in my notes here. The history is not revisionist. What it actually says is that they're going to teach that some slaves learned skills that were beneficial post-freedom. So an example is there was Dr. William Allen, who's an African-American, who is a member of Florida's African-American History Standards Work Group, said on Jesse Waters' show, he talked about how Frederick Douglass, while he was a slave, learned how to read. He learned how to read. He became literate while he was a slave. Was being a slave good? Was it beneficial overall? No. Nobody's trying to argue that. Nobody's saying that, Kamala. What they are saying is that some skills were learned that ended up becoming beneficial. Like Frederick Douglass became literate and then ended up writing his own autobiography post-freedom. That's what they're saying. Nobody is trying to excuse the original sin of this nation of slavery. Nobody's trying to say in any way that slavery was in any way good. Nobody's saying that. But Kamala sees it that way, and she lies about it. And then there's even been some GOP representatives. One of them, he has since walked back his statements, but originally Byron Donalds out of Florida came out against DeSantis for this education curriculum. It's absolutely insane what some of these people are willing to do and willing to say. And you can obviously see that people are not actually reading into it even a little bit. Because if you read into the legislation, you would see that what it says is that slavery was wrong. There were some benefits, things that people learned while being slaves that ended up benefiting them later. Not that slavery in and of itself was beneficial. Nobody's saying that. Or that slaves benefited. Nobody's trying to say. What they're saying is that there were skills that they learned. I just want to reiterate it for everybody, because the thing about it is that history is offensive. History is blunt. History is uncomfortable. It is. And so for people to try to distort it, because you want to know who the real revisionist would be, is if you didn't teach that. Like Kamala is insinuating that you shouldn't teach that. That would be the real revisionist. Simply, it's a harsh reality of our world to actually look at all of this comprehensively. I got so much more to cover for the rest of the show, everybody, but I do got to take a quick break on the radio. We got 2 more segments here. And the next one, I'm going to cover a little bit about the heat waves and Mitch McConnell freezing up. Big stories out of this week, everybody. We will be right back with more Speechless on Cities 92.9, the news and talk of Bloomington Normal. How's everybody doing? Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. Oof. I'm just looking through everything here, making sure I got my notes and stuff lined up good for this next segment. I also feel sorry for Mitch. That'll be a interesting story for us to cover And a lot of people are starting to get in on the conversation as to what we should do about old people in office. He has been in way too long. There's so many people like that. Let me go. I see this thing right here. Let me actually, I have the clip. Let me go take a look. Right as he stops. Watch. You're interesting. Yeah, let me I'll pull it up on screen because I'm not going to play because since the audio is kind of just him going silent. Let's take a look. All right. So pay attention to this. Woman in the green taps him just as he freezes up. Let's take a look here.
Bipartisan cooperation
Woman in the green,
and a
right
string
here,
of
taps him. Taps him again too, if you saw that. Interesting. I had not noticed that. Very interesting. Then he
and
just
a string
fits.
of
I can't say that on the radio. I can say that on YouTube. Interesting. 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 Gosh. What happened? What happened, Mitch? What happened? I don't know. We're gonna talk about that though, but I'm gonna talk about the weather first. Thank you for continuing to listen, License. I appreciate it. God bless each and every one of you. Even if you're not my biggest fan, I don't care. I appreciate all of you. Thank you. We're obviously taking a break right now from the radio. We'll be back soon. Mitch did look like he stroked out for a minute, Ryan, but I just feel like it can't be. The only reason why I say it's not a stroke is because he did get back up and do like a Q&A for 10 minutes right after. I don't know what happened. It's just weird. It's just weird. It's old people. Like that's really what I'd say. It's a old people brain fart kind of thing. We will be back here in just about 2-ish minutes. If you guys got any questions, comments, or concerns, feel free to put it in the control. Maybe. I don't know. Because I don't have any. There's no hard facts on any of it. It's just weird. Maybe the green told him to hush. I don't know. If you guys are just tuning in, though, anybody who's tuning in, if you have not subscribed to my channel on YouTube, I'd appreciate it. You could go right up there at Speechless Kev on YouTube, subscribe to the channel, check out my daily shows, check out some of my clips, some shorter form content. I know some people like the long form content. I know some people like the shorter form content. So whatever you want to do, go for it. I'd appreciate it. I need to get some food in me. I haven't had any food all day pretty much. I had my Red Bull and I got my water. That's me today. That's what I got. Okay, we're about to come back. welcome back to Speechless on Cities 92.9, the news and talk of Bloomington Normal and beyond. I'm your host, Kev Phares. Thank you guys so much for tuning in today on this beautiful Sunday afternoon from 3 to 5 every Sunday. That's when I'm on, and I'm here live. So if you want to text or call in, hit me up at 309-451-9299. Again, that number is 309-451-9299. I'd love to hear from you, hear what you got to say about any and all of what I'm talking about here. I got a few different stories to cover here in this next segment, but always don't forget, you can always go check me out if you're not driving your car. You can watch me actually in studio. You can watch it live on Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, Twitter, or Rumble. We got the whole video streaming thing up and running here at Cities 92.9, bringing you the top quality content that we know we need to save this country. Bringing it here. But here's an interesting story for you guys. The weather. It's now political. Yes, Hillary Clinton this last week. Obviously, you guys know that we've had some pretty high temps here. It's been pretty uncomfortable. In fact, the McLean County Fair, which is going on, closed its rides until 5 o'clock, I believe, on Thursday because of the heat, which kind of a controversial decision. Some people have been obviously feeling different ways about it. But Hillary Clinton came out and blamed MAGA Republicans this last week. It's apparently all their fault because they don't want to address climate change for this heat wave. But here's the interesting thing is that a lot of lefties want to claim that these heat waves are breaking a bunch of records, but most show that while it is abnormally hot, it's not necessarily significantly out of the ordinary. Out of Fox News, government researchers have been tracking heat waves for more than 100 years, according to the data from the U.S. Climate Change Science Program, which is made available by the EPA. The annual heat wave index for the continuous 48 states. Continuous 48 states was substantially higher in the 1930s than at any point in recent years. In some years in the 1930s, it was 4 times greater or even more. Additionally, the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, NOAA, has the largest database of daily temperatures that goes back to 1948. They used 1,066 weather stations located across the United States to collect this data. And according to the NOAA, huge swaths of the U.S. have experienced a significant decrease in abnormally hot days recorded since 1948, especially in the Midwest and northern and eastern Texas. Although it's true that some parts of the U.S. have seen the number of hotter than usual days increase over the past 70 years, including California and the New York metropolitan area, both of which happen to be areas where a large number of media outlets are located, most weather stations have shown no meaningful changes or even declines. If the available data so clearly reveal that there is no heat wave crisis, why are media outlets suggesting that the opposite is true? Again, if you turn on MSNBC, if you turn on CNN, if you read New York Times, they're all claiming that it's hot as heck outside and it's all climate change and it's the worst it's ever been. The answer is sloppy, irresponsible media reporting combined with cherry-picked data. Anyone who wants to show a long-term warming or cooling trend can easily do so by selectively choosing starting and ending points in data sets that will provide the answer you're looking for. For instance, if you start your examination of historic temperatures with figures collected in the 1970s, when temperatures were unusually low compared to the rest of the country, then current temperatures look abnormally high. But if you actually take into account the holistic data, everything that we have, yes, there are some areas in which it's pretty bad. In terms of it's high heats and some record-breaking heats. But overall, holistically, it's not that way. There are some places that have no meaningful change, many places, the majority, no meaningful change, if not a decline in average high temp days. So, what is it then? Because the left wants to claim it's climate change, right? They have their alarmism. This is you want to talk about, everybody always talks about like psyops, right? Psychological operations and stuff by the government. I think one of the biggest psyops is the brainwashing and alarmism that has happened due to the climate change conspiracy theories. And here's the thing, I'm not even a climate change denier. I know that the climate changes. At one point in the Earth's history, it was covered in ice. Even if you want to take it to the biblical standpoint of weather. Heck, Noah's Ark happened, right? If that's what you believe in. The entire earth was flooded. The climate changes, everybody. I'm not denying that. And it can have large swaths of changes. But you have people that come out and say, you need to vote Democrat or the earth is going to end in 12 years. Tell me that's not like an absolute lie and alarmism. And then the Democrats want to come in and ban your gas stoves. And then they come out and tell you that, oh my gosh, this is the worst heats we've ever had. And it's all because of climate change. It's all because of climate change. No, it's actually not. And the statistics and the data show that it's not. It was much hotter back in the 1930s, and we're not at record-breaking temps right now. You are being lied to, but that's something that everybody, if you listen, most people that listen to Cities 92.9, besides like our hecklers and trolls and everything like that, most of you know that you're being lied to. And the government, here's a ponderance I had this last week. And it was just, I was kind of just thinking about the ways that I've changed, and ways that I've changed, especially in the last like decade or so. I mean, I'm 22, so a decade ago I was 12. And something that's become a major realization to me is that I firmly believe, and it's come from things like climate change, it's come from things like the UFOs that we've had, it's come from realizations about the JFK assassination, a lot of things, is that I firmly believe that the government lies to us more than it tells the truth. I believe that the government lies to us more than it tells the truth. I mean, heck, look at the cocaine thing, right? The cocaine in the White House. You're really going to tell me that they don't know whose cocaine that is? In like what is supposed to be the most secure building in the country, if not on earth, one of the most secure buildings in the country, if not on earth. You're going to tell me you don't know who brought and had cocaine in the White House? If anything, that just confirms to me that it's highly likely hunters anyways. But obviously, I can't say that for sure. It's my opinion. That is not any confirmed fact because the White House won't tell us, especially if it's hunters. We won't know. And so that's how it goes. But in terms of crazy things happening in our country, lies are being told, or not even just lies, but also just keeping the truth from the American people. Here's an interesting story this last week that's raised a lot of questions. Being Mitch McConnell freezing at the stand. Mitch McConnell was giving out of Fox News, Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell out of Kentucky appeared to freeze up during a news conference with other Republican leaders following their weekly party luncheon Wednesday afternoon. He started off the speech saying, "Good afternoon, everyone. We are on a path to finishing the NDAA this week. There's been good bipartisan cooperation and a string of," and a lady in green taps his arm and then just goes silent. And he just stands there. And everybody's kind of waiting for him to say something else. You probably saw this video. It's very weird. And then all of a sudden, Senator John Barrasso out of Wyoming comes up and says, "You okay, Mitch? Is there anything else you want to say, or should we just go back to your office?" McConnell then steps aside, and Senator John Thune out of South Dakota and others addressed the press on the one-year anniversary of the Democrat-led Inflation Reduction Act. The GOP leader later reappeared. That's Mitch McConnell about 10 minutes later to finish the press conference. McConnell aide told Fox News that the senator, quote, felt lightheaded and stepped away for a moment, and he came back to handle a Q&A. McConnell himself said, "I'm fine," to reporters as he proceeded to answer questions. Some on Twitter started speculating that they thought Mitch might have had a stroke or a seizure. Either to me, I mean, you might believe that he might have had a mini stroke or a mini seizure. I don't know. But both seem kind of unlikely to me, as he was able to get back up and speak and answer questions after about 10 minutes. However, there are a few things to note. The first is that earlier this year, McConnell, who is 81, suffered a concussion and a fractured rib from a fall in a Washington hotel and spent time in recovery in an inpatient rehabilitation facility before returning to the Senate. Look, this guy's an old guy. He's fragile. Bones brittle. He's an old guy. So it does not surprise me in any way that he could have not only effects from that injury, but also just old guy. I don't want to say old guy disease. That sounds mean and like much meaner than I want to be. But like just having old guy brain fart moment, But now you even have presidential candidates making comments regarding what should happen to people once they hit a certain age in office. Obviously, age is a huge thing people have been talking about in terms of mental capacity, mental fitness, as we have a octogenarian as our president currently. We have many octogenarians in Congress. We have Nancy Pelosi. We have Mitch McConnell. We have obviously Joe Biden as our president. We have a lot of old people in office. And many of them have been in office for quite a long time. But Nikki Haley went on Face the Nation this morning and made some interesting ideas about what should happen to people once they hit a certain age in office. Here is that clip we'll play now.
for privacy, given that there is a 4-year-old child involved?
When I was talking about the grandchildren, what I was saying is that we need to have term limits in Congress, and we need to have mental competency tests for anyone over the age of 75. And I don't say that to be disrespectful. When you go and you look at Biden and you ask him what country he was in the week before and he can't say it. When you go and ask him how many grandchildren he has and he doesn't know. When you go and see him falling asleep with leaders, that's concerning. And I know when I was at the United Nations, leaders watch the health status of other leaders. They are watching Biden right now. You see what happened with McConnell.
Yeah.
You see what happened with Feinstein.
Okay, so I want to follow up on that, but I think, are you saying?
So she's saying that there should be mental competency tests. And I'm not the biggest fan of Nikki Haley for the most part, but I mean, a broken clock is right twice a day. And this is one time that she would be right. It would make a lot of sense to have a mental competency test for people that are serving in this country that are of an age. I mean, if a lot of times once you hit a certain age, you have to get your license renewed. You have to retake the test and everything like that. So wouldn't it make sense that to literally be a leader of this country who makes decisions that affect millions and millions of Americans, that you would have to be able to pass a mental competency test? Well, Nikki Haley, for perspective, is only 51 years old. Asa Hutchinson, who is also a presidential candidate that I'm not very fond of, went on Face the Nation soon after today, and had a little bit of words to say to Nikki Haley about this proposal. Here is that clip.
I've got a lot to ask you about, but I do want to pick up on something Nikki Haley continues to raise, and this is this idea of a mental acuity test for anyone over 75. You're 72 years old. If you win the presidency, you'd be right in that range. What do you think of her concept? Do you think that's appropriate?
Well, there's a mental acuity test every time you go to Iowa and there's a town hall meeting with the questions from the voters. They do a pretty good job of assessing those issues. As a practical matter, you want a president to be in good health and in charge of, the country in a good mental state, but the tests are not constitutional. And so it's really something that's a throwaway line that catches people's attention. But the voters, I have a lot of confidence in to make the right decisions. If I get in the race, well, I'm in the race. But if I'm the nominee of the party and you've got Joe Biden there, I'll be the youngest person in the race.
Yeah, he makes somewhat of a point. But here's the thing that Asa Hutchinson kind of negates is that any of these things that people talk about. So a lot of people want to talk about age and term limits and people that serve their entire lives in Congress, right? Everybody wants to talk about that. What nobody ever talks about, which Asa Hutchinson kind of says, but also miscategorizes, is that he claims it's unconstitutional. And he's not wrong. But whenever anybody talks about term limits, age limits, mental capacity tests, anything like that, it would be a constitutional amendment. Did you know that it wasn't until the 22nd Amendment passed by Congress and added to our Constitution that we had a term limits or specific term limits for the president? 22nd Amendment states that. 19th Amendment, which was added again, gave women the right to vote. The 21st Amendment, I believe, is the one that repealed the 18th. I think the 18th was what I'm trying to say here. I'm just listing my facts now. What I'm trying to say here is that you have all these different amendments that what they did is they had to go through Congress. So yes, he's right. It is unconstitutional, but it's not impossible because it could become constitutional if added. Just saying. We're going to talk a little bit more about that in my final segment. Everybody stay tuned. We got more Speechless coming up. What do you think about all these old people in office? Do you think we should have an age limit? Do you think we should have term limits? Anything like that? Text or call in 309-451-9299. You could also leave a comment on the Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, Twitter, live stream, anything like that. Let me know what you think. Age limits, term limits, anything like that. 309-451-9299. We'll be right back with the end of Speechless on Cities 92.9, the news and talk of Bloomington Normal and beyond. You guys can't hear the music. I try not to do the music, my bumper music and stuff, because otherwise I start getting copyright violations and I could get kicked off YouTube and stuff like that. And it could make it so that I'm not able to get monetized or something. So I want to make sure that I don't have as many copyright violations as possible. Hope everybody's doing well. We'll be right back on the radio to wrap this show up. And I hope everybody's having a wonderful Sunday. Absolutely. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. Hit that like button, everybody. I dare you to. Hit that like button. I got to take a seat. I'll sit back here. I'll give this a shout out one more time. If anybody likes this shirt or wants a shirt like it, there's a site called unitedmerch.com. I don't know if you guys saw me shout it out earlier, but I got a deal for you guys. I can help you guys get a deal. You go to unitedmerch.com. You can get shirts just like this, the Anti-Socialism Social Club one. We got I Plead the Second. We got Stand for Something. Don't Censor Me, Cancel Culture, all that kind of stuff. And if you want any of those shirts and you like it and you want to dress like me and probably look better than me in it, you can go to unitedmerch.com and use code SPEECHLESS at checkout for 20% off. You can get 20% off those shirts. All you got to do is use my code SPEECHLESS at unitedmerch.com. It'd be awesome. I'd really appreciate it. It's a way that you can support the show while also getting a fun t-shirt out of it. So if you want to support the show and support the messaging, support the cause, and get a fun t-shirt, go to unitedmerch.com. Use code SPEECHLESS to check out, get 20% off. So they got other stuff too. Let's go. We can just go to their shop. I got a little bit of time here. Go to their shop and shop around a little bit. Bear Arms for like California. That's funny. Stand for something. This one right here, you can't really see it, but it says lists of countries where socialism worked. And obviously there's nothing under it. Tax a Socialist. Let's Go Brandon. Swipe Right. Baby Lives Matter. All Cops Are Badass. America Strong. There's a lot of different options you can go for here. And again, all you got to do is go to this website. You can get some stickers. You can get some flags, whatever. And you could, all you got to do, use code SPEECHLESS at checkout for 20% off. It's a great deal. I'm telling you. I really like it. Unitedmerch.com. We can go through some more of their stuff too. They got all these different fun stickers. You can put it on your laptop, on a water bottle, anything like that. Use code SPEECHLESS at checkout for 20% off. Excuse me. Term limits, at least. Bernie is old, but still with it, albeit a socialist nut. Age limit, maybe, but there are people over 70 that can be sharp as a 35-year-old too. I guess it depends on each individual. And so I have a solution to that, and you're not going to like it, Ryan. Nobody usually likes my solution to that, but I'm going to talk about it in the next segment as I wrap up. When are we coming back here? I got, actually, I still got like 2 minutes, minute and a half. What do you guys, anybody else got any thoughts on term limits or age limits for people of holding leadership positions in our legislature? Let me know. Leave it in the comments. I'd love to hear what you got to say. And we'll talk about it in the next segment. Hope everybody's having a wonderful day. We'll be right back on the radio. Yeah, I'd 100% agree with this, Kevin. I'd 100% agree with this. Term limits, this is an interesting take. Term limits should be set at the state level. So like you're thinking like this is Oklahoma Chicken Cam. So you think Oklahoma should have its own term limits for its own congressman, and then Illinois should have different ones. I can understand that thought process. I can. I feel like there's, I think that's an interesting take. I have to think about it a little bit more, but I think it's an interesting take. It'd be one that I have to look into a little bit more, but we got one more segment coming up here in about 5 seconds. So let's get back to it, and I'll break down a little bit what I think about all these term limits and ages and everything. And we are back with Speechless on Cities 92.9, the news and talk of Bloomington Normal. I'm your host, Kev Phares. And in the last segment, I only got a few minutes left. I want to make sure I can break all this down for everybody to hear. In the last segment I was talking about, we all probably heard, most of you heard, about Mitch McConnell freezing up at the stand when he was supposed to be giving a speech after. It's a pretty routine speech that he gives every week after the weekly Republican luncheon. And he just froze up out of nowhere. And it's raised a lot of questions. I mean, some people were wondering if he had a stroke, if he had a seizure, anything like that. But simply what I do know is that when people get older and they get into, especially into their 80s, their mental acuity can begin to decline. I mean, we see that with our current president. Our current president, I mean, he has the most gaffes of anybody I've ever seen in politics. And it's insane. So the fact of the matter is, when it comes to a leader, and this is one of the things that I talk about when it comes to our presidential primary, is age is important. The age of somebody is important. It does matter. An older age is linked with declining mental stamina. Usually, obviously, there's outliers. There's individuals where they could be 75, 80, and they're as sharp as a 35-year-old, or you could have a 50-some-year-old John Fetterman who is not there half the time. I mean, he even just had a quote that he came out with the other day that said, "I don't even like myself." And poor guy. I mean, I'm sad for a lot of these people. Here's the thing: is when it comes to these older people or these people that have significant health defects or health deficiencies that are causing mental issues, I'm sad for him, and I pray for him, and I hope that the people around them eventually start saying, like, "Hey, we need to maybe get you like treatment and help instead of forcing you to continue this role and everything," because it's honestly, it not only is it hurting that person, it's also hurting the American people. But the fact of the matter is, like I said, age is important. Heck, even just the imagery of a really old person, like an octogenarian, doesn't give off a particularly energetic or strong appearance, right? So how do we solve this issue of old people that are unfit for office holding power? Well, some say it's putting an age restriction on offices, which again would have to be a constitutional amendment, but it would kind of make sense a little bit. I mean, right now we have age limits for how old you have to be before you can run for president is 35, Senate is 30, 25 for the House, and others say term limits, right? Term limits. We need to put term limits on we have two for the president. It's our 22nd Amendment. So that's a term limit of two terms for the presidency. Other people say that we should do something similar for Congress, for Senate. Even some people claim that we should do it for the judiciary, but that's a different conversation for a different day. So what is the solution here? And the way I see it is, yes, we could do term limits, we could do age restrictions, but then you fall into the problem of, okay, what if you have somebody who actually is a really good representative, and maybe they are 80 years old, but they're really sharp and people really like them. And maybe they only got elected 2 terms ago or something. You know, you could have people that you really like that are actually really good representatives, because then you have to consider the individual. And so you want to know my real, and people don't usually like this, but this is my real solution to this issue. My real solution to this issue of having old people that don't know where they are in office is we need to have an informed voter base. Because you have all these people that are like, they're the problem. The old people are the problem. The old people in office are the problem. Really? They're the problem? What about the millions and millions of people that voted for them? Look, I hate to come out here and just be like, yes, all my viewers and listeners are the problem. You're not necessarily. If you're listening to the show, if you're watching this, you're probably pretty informed. But the thing, if we want to not have old people in office, why do we need an amendment to do that? Our issue is we have low propensity, low informed voters that go out and vote for the name that they most recognize. The fact of the matter is that 80 to 90% of incumbents get reelected, if not even higher than that. 80 to 90%. They have a significantly higher chance of being reelected if you've already been elected once. So what we need to do is have an informed voter populace that can instill its own term limits. We can instill our own term limits without any kind of an amendment. And so let's work on informing people so we can do that ourselves. We don't need term limits. We don't need age limits. We can vote for what we want. So why don't we all go do that, everybody? I got to get out of here. We got so much. I have so much more I could have covered, but you can go check out my YouTube channel, Speechless with Kev Phares, where I do daily shows every single day right here in studio. Don't worry. You can go check out all that content. I'll be back next Sunday, though, on the radio with Speechless on Cities 92.9, the news and talk of Bloomington Normal. Thanks so much for tuning in. See you next week. Okie dokie, everybody on the live stream, thanks for tuning in. I hope you found something enjoyable out of any of that show today. Don't forget to like, subscribe, hit that like button. It's that little thumbs up. You should. I recommend it. Subscribe and hit your notification bell to all if you're on YouTube so you never miss a minute of what I'm talking about. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. I got to get out of here. I got to get some dinner. I'm a hungry guy. I got to get some dinner, but I hope you guys have a wonderful rest of your Sunday. And don't worry, you can tune in on my YouTube channel next week or tomorrow for my daily show. We'll see what's in the news. God bless you. God bless America. Talk to you guys later.